In February 2026, the United States and Israel launched the largest combined air campaign against Iran in history. Thousands of bombs, hundreds of jets, the supreme leader killed in a targeted strike. Military infrastructure shattered across the country. And Iran's allies, the network of armed groups it had spent 4 decades building, funding, arming, and training across 6 countries, did almost nothing. Hezbollah, once the most powerful non-state military force in the world, was too damaged to fight. Hamas was operationally irrelevant. Iraqi militias made threats but held back. The Houthis, the one group that kept fighting, did so largely on their own terms, not Tehran's orders. The so-called axis of resistance, the architecture Iran had spent 40 years and hundreds of billions of dollars constructing, had, in the words of one analysis, fallen into a deafening silence at the exact moment Iran needed it most. How did Iran build this empire? How did it fall apart so fast? And what does the wreckage tell us about the future of the Middle East? To understand what Iran built, you need to understand the problem it was trying to solve. After the 1979 Islamic Revolution, the new Iranian government found itself in a terrible strategic position. It had declared the United States and Israel its primary enemies. It had alienated most of its Sunni Arab neighbors. And then, in 1980, Saddam Hussein's Iraq invaded, starting an 8-year war that killed hundreds of thousands of Iranians and devastated the country's economy and military. Iran survived that war, but it learned something fundamental from it. Conventional warfare, army against army, tank against tank, was a losing game. Iran's military was technologically inferior to the United States and Israel. It could not match their air power, their precision weapons, or their naval capability. A head-to-head fight was suicide. So Iran developed a different strategy. Instead of fighting its enemies directly, it would build a network of armed groups in other countries, proxy forces that shared Iran's goals, accepted its weapons and money, and fought on Iran's behalf. Iran could bleed its enemies, threaten their borders, disrupt their plans, and project power across the entire Middle East, without ever sending its own army. The architect of this strategy was the IRGC's Quds force, the external operations arm of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. For decades, the Quds force recruited, trained, armed, and funded militia groups across Lebanon, Palestine, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. The man who turned this concept into a functioning empire was Qasem Soleimani, who led the Quds force from 1998 until his assassination by a US drone strike in January 2020. One former Israeli defense minister described the strategy with a metaphor: the octopus doctrine. Iran was the head. It sent out its tentacles, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Iraqi militias, the Houthis, to fight while the head stayed safe at home. The tentacles could be cut, but the head was never at risk. For 40 years, this worked, until it did not. The first and most important tentacle was Hezbollah. Iran created Hezbollah in 1982, during the Lebanese Civil War, in response to Israel's invasion of Lebanon. The IRGC sent trainers, weapons, and money to organize Shiite militants in southern Lebanon into a disciplined fighting force. Within a few years, Hezbollah had evolved from a guerrilla group into something unprecedented, a non-state actor with the firepower, organization, and discipline of a conventional army. By the 2020s, Hezbollah maintained an estimated arsenal of 130,000 to 150,000 rockets and missiles, more than most countries' armies. It had seats in Lebanon's parliament. It ran schools, hospitals, and social services across Shiite communities. It was simultaneously a political party, a social welfare organization, and the most powerful military force in Lebanon, stronger than the Lebanese National Army itself. For Iran, Hezbollah served a specific strategic function. It was the deterrent. The unspoken logic was simple. If Israel or the United States struck Iran, Hezbollah would unleash its arsenal on northern Israel from just across the border. The cost of attacking Iran would be paid in Israeli civilian casualties. That threat kept Israel's hand stayed for years. But Hezbollah was also the critical node in a physical supply chain. Iran supplied Hezbollah through a land corridor that ran from Tehran through Iraq into Syria, where Iran's ally Bashar al-Assad controlled the territory, and then across the border into Lebanon. Weapons, money, trainers, and equipment all flowed along this route. Without Syria, that supply line did not exist. Remember that, because the loss of Syria is where everything starts to collapse. Hezbollah was the crown jewel, but it was not the only piece. In Gaza, Iran funded and armed Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Hamas is a Sunni organization, ideologically distant from Iran's Shiite theocracy, but strategic alignment against Israel bridged the gap. Iran provided Hamas with rocket technology, drone components, guidance systems, and financial support that transformed it from a street movement into a military organization capable of building an extensive tunnel network and launching the devastating October 7th attack. In Iraq, Iran cultivated a web of Shiite militia groups that eventually became formalized as the Popular Mobilization Forces. Groups like Kataib Hezbollah and Asaib al-Haq were trained by the IRGC, armed with Iranian weapons, and embedded into Iraq's political and security institutions. They gave Iran enormous leverage over Baghdad and the ability to threaten U.S. forces stationed at bases across the country. Since October 2023 alone, these militias conducted over 170 attacks on U.S. facilities in Iraq and Syria. In Syria, Iran deployed its own IRGC advisors, alongside thousands of militia fighters, including Afghans and Pakistanis recruited for the battlefield, to prop up Bashar al-Assad during the Syrian civil war. Iran's intervention in Syria was not charity. Assad's survival was essential to maintaining the supply corridor to Hezbollah. Lose Syria, lose the route to Lebanon, lose the deterrent against Israel. The Houthis gave Iran a presence on the southern flank of Saudi Arabia, and critically, positioned them near the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, another global shipping choke point. The Houthis operated with more independence from Tehran than the other proxies, but they accepted weapons, drones, and missile technology that allowed them to strike targets across the region. Put it all together, and you get the Ring of Fire. Hamas to the southwest, Hezbollah to the north, militias in Iraq and Syria to the east, Houthis to the south. Israel was surrounded, and Iran did not have a single soldier officially deployed in any of these countries. It was the most ambitious proxy architecture in modern military history, and it all started to unravel on a single day. October 7th, 2023 was supposed to be a demonstration of the Ring of Fire in action. Hamas launched its attack. Hezbollah opened a second front the next day with rockets from Lebanon. The Iraqi militias began striking U.S. bases. The Houthis started firing at ships in the Red Sea. The unity of the fronts concept, Iran's vision of simultaneous, coordinated pressure from every direction, was being activated for the first time. There was just one problem. It did not work. The proxy attacks did not stop Israel from doing anything. Israel invaded Gaza and systematically dismantled Hamas over the following months. The rocket fire from Lebanon forced evacuations in northern Israel, but it did not change Israel's military calculus. The militia strikes on U.S. bases were a nuisance, not a deterrent. And the Houthi attacks on shipping, while economically disruptive, did not alter the trajectory of the war. Then Israel went on the offensive, not just against Hamas, but against the entire network. In September through November 2024, Israel executed what may be the most devastating intelligence operation against a non-state actor in history. Thousands of pagers and walkie-talkies that Hezbollah operatives were carrying simultaneously detonated, a supply chain attack that revealed an almost incomprehensible level of infiltration into the organization. Hassan Nasrallah, Hezbollah's leader for nearly 30 years, was assassinated in a targeted airstrike. Senior commanders were killed one by one. Israel launched a ground offensive into southern Lebanon. Hezbollah's military capacity was shattered. The domino effect was immediate. In December 2024, without Hezbollah's stabilizing military presence in Syria, the Assad regime collapsed. Rebel forces captured Damascus. Assad fled. Iran's only state ally in the Arab world was gone overnight, and with it, the land bridge, the supply corridor from Iran through Iraq and Syria to Hezbollah in Lebanon, was severed. This was the single most consequential blow to Iran's regional strategy. Analysts called it the loss of Iran's strategic backbone. 40 years of investment in Syria, troops, money, political capital, thousands of militia fighters, evaporated in weeks. By early 2025, the balance sheet was devastating. Hamas, operationally destroyed in Gaza. Hezbollah, degraded, leaderless, and withdrawing from southern Lebanon. Syria, lost entirely. Iraqi militias, making threats but largely holding back. The Houthis, the only group still actively fighting, but doing so on their own terms, with their own priorities, not necessarily coordinated with Tehran. And then came the 12-day war in June 2025, when Israel struck Iran's nuclear and military facilities directly. Iran launched hundreds of missiles at Israel. Most were intercepted. And the proxies, the network that was supposed to make any attack on Iran unbearably costly, barely moved. One analysis captured it perfectly: the total failure of Iran's pre-October 7th regional strategy, when faced with an existential war, would probably prompt a complete strategic rethink in Tehran. And then came the final test. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched the most devastating air campaign against Iran since the revolution. The supreme leader was killed, military sites were obliterated, government infrastructure was struck. If there was ever a moment for the axis of resistance to activate, to prove that Iran's 40-year investment had built something durable, this was it. Hezbollah declared war from Lebanon and launched attacks into Israel, but it was a shadow of the force it had been 2 years earlier. Its arsenal was depleted, its command structure was decimated, its supply lines from Syria no longer existed. The 2026 Lebanon war was real, but it was not the overwhelming second front that Hezbollah was designed to open. Hamas was functionally irrelevant. After more than a year of Israeli operations in Gaza, it had no capacity to mount meaningful military pressure on anyone. The Iraqi militias made public threats. They talked about martyrdom operations. But Iraq's internal politics, and the very real possibility that escalation would invite US strikes on Iraqi soil, restrained them. They remained largely uninvolved. The Houthis continued their attacks on shipping and fired missiles at Israel. They were the most active component of the network. But they also operated with the greatest independence from Tehran. Their decisions were driven by their own strategic calculations, not by orders from the IRGC. The old system, the hub-and-spoke model where Tehran coordinated proxy action across the region, had broken. What was left was not a coordinated axis. It was a loose, improvised collection of damaged groups, each acting on its own instincts. One analysis described them as weaker but wilder, less obedient, more erratic, and more dangerous in their unpredictability. Iran's proxy empire was one of the most remarkable strategic constructions of the last half-century. A country that could not match its enemies in conventional military power built an alternative, a network of armed groups that gave it influence, deterrence, and the ability to project force across an entire region without risking its own soldiers. It took 40 years to build. It took roughly 18 months to dismantle. The question now is not whether Iran will try to rebuild it. It almost certainly will. Reports already indicate that Iran has resumed weapons deliveries to Hezbollah through overland routes and intensified support to the Houthis. But the environment has changed. Syria is gone. Hezbollah is degraded. Hamas is shattered. And the lesson of 2024 to 2026, that the entire network could be systematically destroyed faster than anyone imagined, has reshaped how every government in the region calculates risk. The deeper question is, what happens when a strategy that defined a country's foreign policy for 4 decades is proven to fail? Iran built the axis of resistance to avoid direct confrontation. The proxy network was the shield. And when the shield broke, Iran was exposed to exactly the kind of direct military assault it had spent 40 years trying to prevent. The octopus lost its tentacles, and for the first time in a generation, the head is not safe at home anymore. Next video, we tackle the most contested question in Middle Eastern geopolitics: Iran's nuclear program. Who's telling the truth? Who's lying? And why nobody can agree? Subscribe now so you don't miss it.